Hey friends, and welcome back to another video here on my YouTube channel. This is Cassie. Today I have the Brutus Monroe inspiration box for January 2021 called Sweethearts, and as far as I know it is still available, so I'll try to have that linked down below. Alright, let's go ahead and show you what I did. I went ahead and stamped and colored most of the images that I would need ahead of time. You'll see that this scene, oh my gosh, I had so much fun coloring that. It took a little bit of time, but not too much. I love that these little pieces have die cuts to match, so I did color those the same. I had original plans. Those changed as we got to creating, which happens sometimes, as you know. I went ahead and stamped out some ice cream and some shakes, and I even took one of the foilable panels and I colored that with my alcohol markers as well. I went ahead and did that ahead of time because that one took a little bit of time also, but we're going to show you how even with that intricate piece you can foil that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our first card. I'm going to cut this panel down because this is going to be our little scene. All I'm trying to do is cut off the excess white, and then I look at it a little bit more, and I want that to fit on the front of an A2 size card, which those measure 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches when they're closed. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm going to have an even amount of paper that would show on the around the outside of it. So I'm just going to keep trimming that down until I'm happy with how that comes about. All right, so now I want to show you these matching dies. I love that Brutus Monroe is doing that. This one is, oh my gosh, so clever. So I had to do that. I'm going to just tack that down. It's so easy to line it up, tack that down, and then I'll run that through my die cutting machine with this other one because this one has not only the seat, but the little boy and the little girl that you can run through your die cutting machine also to get those out. So if you wanted to pop these up on that background, which I originally, like I said, was going to do that with this, but I shift gears, and out of these two panels, I'll end up making 2 cards instead of just the one that I originally planned. I'll have to run this through a couple times because putting both the boy and the girl on there together just doesn't go. Those dies will overlap. But look at that. So you get this fun, you know, you get the boy, you get the girl, and it's just great. And you get the little stool, so everything can be 3D if you want it to be. But look at that. Oh my gosh, that just made my heart go pitter patter. But yeah, those line up just perfectly on top of each other. Isn't that great? That makes me so happy too. All right, so here's where I shift gears. We're going to make this a little bit of a shaker. So I've got some acetate. Well, in this case, it's transparency sheets because I get a bulk amount of it for super cheap, and I will have that linked down below as well. I need a couple pieces. The reason I need a couple is because I like to make my shakers where I put down the acetate first and put it on top after I've put my foam tape on, but you're going to see I do a mess up here. I pull in the Scotch foam tape. I'm basically out of my Brutus Monroe tape, and I think they either have a new manufacturer, so it might be a little bit different tape than before, or maybe it is the same, maybe it's just different packaging. I'm not sure, but I'm anxious to get a hold of some more of that, so I need to probably put in an order for some of that. And here's where I realized you have to put the acetate down first if you want this to be a shaker. So I'm peeling that away. I'm peeling away all of the foam tape, and now I'll just use a little bit of liquid glue to adhere down my first piece of transparency sheet. But yeah, thankfully the Scotch foam tape doesn't stick so much that I was like, oh my gosh, did I just ruin my scene? I mean, it did pull away a little bit of the paper, but not enough to make a difference on the front side. So now I'll put down liquid glue so that way when I put down my foam tape, since I'd already peeled that away once, I won't have any issue with it sticking down. So that liquid glue will ensure that it stays put. So I'll just put that all around our little window. And I'm only going to use 1 layer of foam tape. The reason for that is I just didn't want this to be too crazy bulky. But if you want your shaker bits to really be able to shake, you need to put 2 layers. Now I'm going to peel away all of that release paper. You want to do this because before you put your shaker bits in there, because if you don't, you have a tendency to bump those shaker bits around and then they end up sticking to the foam tape. I poured some of that in there. Those are the little sprinkles that came in the kit. And then I attached down another piece of foam tape. And then I attach down a piece of white cardstock behind that. And then I'll adhere this down to a piece of the white cardstock that came in the kit. That cardstock that came in the kit is so good for layering. And I know if you watched the unboxing, you heard me squeal about these sentiment strips. They just make me so happy, so happy. So I'm just going to trim these down using my guillotine trimmer. And then we've got a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches. And then here I've made a mess with my sprinkles, so I'm going to pick those up. In the meantime, Max is going to grab a hold of some of that release paper and run off down the hall and hide under the bed. So I have to go retrieve that from him. He is a cat after my own heart, loves his paper. I did score that base at 4 1/4, so that will fit our panel perfectly. I'll take some liquid glue and adhere that right down to our card panel, or our card base, and then I'll glue down our sentiment that I decided to put at the top. You're a sweetheart. And then on the inside, it'll say, you're 2 scoops of fabulous. So that's going to finish our first card. Love how that turned out. And that scene, oh my gosh, so sweet. Okay, for card number 2, we're going to start in with some foiling. So I'm going to use this panel that I already colored. And I am going to pull in some of the newer colors that Deco Foil has. We've got some Glass Slipper, and we're also going to pull in some Prince Periwinkle later. But I wanted to show you a new tool that I have. It's the Spellbinders Quick Trimmer. I don't like to waste any of the foil. So this thing is fabulous because it will cut straight lines. And my friend Kim gave this to me. She sent this over Christmas. And so it's great. It's got this little self-healing cutting mat. You just line things up. And then there are little like slits on the little clear plastic. And it's got little cutters, one for foil and one for paper. And look at that. Just perfectly cut. So now I can run this through my machine easy peasy. I am going to use some of the sentiment strips, the black ones, because we're going to foil those too. All right, so here is my MINC machine. This was actually going to be my tester to see just how amazing this machine is, because this is an intricate foilable, and my previous laminator never was able to foil the intricate foilables that Brutus Monroe carried before. So I thought, okay, if it can do this, I will be forever in love. And you'll see I'm struggling just trying to get those to cover over the top. But I did discover something later. Using another piece of copy paper over the top just works wonders. So I didn't do it this time, but I do it the next time when I realize that that's the best way, because there's just too much static cling otherwise. So let's show you. It did it. And I was like, yes, ma'am. I am in love with that. Like, I want to foil all the things now. I'm so in love. So here, let me show you. That's just me putting some copy paper over the top. See how just staticky everything is? But it works beautifully. And I did use my Nuvo sweep over the top to brush away any excess. You would actually probably do that before and after you do the foiling. That way you don't have any issue with dust. So here they are. I did 4 sentiments. I'm going to use some foam tape on those sentiments, using my T-ruler to line those up for the front. I want that foiling to be the star of the show with that panel. So I'll put down, "It's your day, let's celebrate." And then I have a card base that's the same as before, and I'm just going to glue those to the inside that say, "Cheers to the birthday girl and treat yourself." And then I'll use that same liquid glue to adhere down my card panel to my card base. And you just have this really fairly quick card. I mean, the coloring obviously took some time. I did that while I was chatting it up with somebody on FaceTime. But yeah, look at that. It's just stunning. I love that the intricate foiling is easy to do with that MINC. I am totally sold. For card number 3, we are going to do some more foiling with another one of those foilable panels. I wanted to test this one because it's even more intricate than the last one. And it has thinner lines, and so I thought, well, if it can do this one, then I'm really, really sold. So I've brought in some Simon Hurley Create inks. We've got Piggyback. I wanted to do a bit of an ombre background. So I've used the Piggyback on the top, or the middle section, and then I'm going to bring in the Rosy cheeks. I love these inks because they layer on top of each other so beautifully, and you can really intensify those colors, which is nice. Oftentimes with colors of ink, you know, one color is what you get. You can't really intensify the color, but if you go over it more and more, you can absolutely get deeper, darker color. I'm going to bring in some copper foil, and we're going to one more time bring in our tool. We'll trim that down, and then we're going to put that right over the top of our panel, sandwich that between 2 pieces of copy paper. I have another strip of it that I trimmed down, and I'm putting 2 sentiments from those sentiment strips, the black ones, and I believe you could probably foil the other ones too, but I just love those black ones and how those are foiled. Run that through my MINC machine, and then let's take a look at how well it did. So we'll pull all those pieces out of our little sandwich, and I'll show you just how amazing it did. It did beautifully. Like, I'm just shocked. I'm shook. And then even the sentiments just did beautifully as well. And if you do have any bits of, like I said earlier, foil that sticks around, you can always sweep it away with a Nuvo sweep or just some really soft brush. I put some foam tape on the back of a couple of the die cut sundaes that I colored and cut out, and then I'm just going to glue down this sentiment to the front. My card panel will be the same, or the card base will be the same as I've done before. It's an A2 size card. I'll just glue another sentiment to the inside, and then I will kind of decide what I want to do with this one. I decide I'm going to trim down just a small, like a 1/4 inch off, and then we're actually going to adhere that to the inside of the card. It brings a lot of cohesion from the outside to the inside, and you know, waste not, want not. That is really pretty. So we'll just glue that to the inside of the card, and then we'll glue down our panel to the front of the card base, leaving a 1/4 inch on the one side. It's going to be on that left-hand side. And then I'm going to bring in the sequins that came in this kit. We'll just put those into a little tray, pull a few of the copper colored ones out, and just attach those down to the front of our card. And then that's going to finish off card number 3. I just can't get over that foiling. I know, I just keep going on, but it's gorgeous. Card number 4 is yet another foilable. I just couldn't help myself. So I did pull out this cute stamp. I love the die that goes with this stamp. What I did is I took my foilable and lined it up right in the middle of my Misty, so that way I don't have to move my stamp. I'm going to ink this up with some Minty Fresh by Simon Hurley Create. I'm going to stamp it a couple times because it does come out pretty light the first time. Then what I'll do is clean off the stamp, and I will shift my foilable just to the left, almost all the way, just kind of guessing, not guessing, but like kind of estimating where that would go. Then I'm going to bring in the Rosy cheeks, and we'll stamp that a couple of times to make sure that's good and stamped. And then we'll clean off the stamp one more time, and we'll shift that foilable almost all the way to the right, just checking to make sure that that is lined up well. But this was a good way to do it so that I didn't have to move my stamp at all, and everything would stay nice and lined up. This last color that I use is Over the Moon, so I've got some fun little conversation hearts. Now this die is so cool. It will not only cut out what you stamped, it will cut out 2 little pieces, so I'll show you here. And I just want the conversation heart in the center. But look at that. Isn't that fun? You get 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to cut this out 3 times because I want 3 little conversation hearts, and I'm going to stamp onto those little conversation hearts the 3 sentiments that come in the set. So I've got XOXO, and I'm inking those up with some Raven Detail ink, which is what I've used for all of my black stamping today. Then we've got Be Mine, and then that final one says I Heart You, and I just think it's so fun how these fit on those little hearts so perfectly. All right, I am going to do some sponging or some ink blending around the edges with that Minty Fresh using a mini Ergo blending brush, and then we'll just finish that up all along that edge. It's nice and subtle, but it does add some color. And then we're going to foil this using the Enchanted Rose. And the sentiment was, I used the glass slipper on that one, but check it out. Once again, it foils just beautifully. I love that. So if, you know, Brutus Monroe continues to keep putting those foilables in there, you're going to see a lot of me foiling. That MINC machine is wonderful. I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of my sentiment and on the back of my conversation hearts, and then I'll just stick those little conversation hearts down on the top. This will give a very simple card a little bit more depth and dimension than what it would normally have. And then I'll take my T-ruler and line up the sentiment there at the bottom, trying to get that centered. Life is sweeter with you in it. I'm going to attach this down to our card base using some liquid glue. And then that's going to finish off card number 4. Super simple, but very fun, and does pack a little bit of punch. For card number 5, we are going to bring in the little die cut boy and girl that I had cut from earlier. But first I'm going to take a piece of some of the red cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm just going to tape that into my Misty. I'm going to take the scene, and we're going to stamp that right over the top of that. Normally when you have like a clear stamp like this and you try to stamp like a big image, if it's like a background, you usually have a bit of an issue with the stamping. But this stamped so beautifully. I did stamp it a couple times just to make sure I had nice crisp black lines, but I'm using that Raven Detail ink, and I'm just stamping that on there just a few times just to make sure that I have good, like I said, crisp black lines. This is going to be my background, and actually this is a really great way if you don't want to maybe have to color the whole scene, this is a really fun way to highlight the scene or parts of the scene that you might want to highlight. So we've got this nice red background and we've stamped our image on there, or the entire scene on there. And here are the pieces from earlier. I just put foam tape on the back of them, and now I'll just peel off all of that release paper. But like I said, this is a great way to highlight just images. So our little boy, our little girl, and the stool next to them are really standing out. And if you wanted to just completely omit the third stool, you could, but I already had it cut out and I really wanted to use it. So I'm just sticking those down, and I love how this is turning out. It just looks so cool. I did trim down some of the sentiments from the sentiment strips, and then just using some liquid glue to adhere everything down to our card base. I did use the red glitter stock. I wish I had cut the center out of there. I'm kind of feeling like I was very wasteful by using that entire sheet that was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, but you know, it is what it is. And so then I'll glue down my panel down to the glitter stock, and then we'll glue our sentiment to the top of that. And once we get that done, that finishes off card number 5. Super quick card, and I love how it turned out. All right, for our final card for this kit, this is a super simple one. I stamped the little bottom part of the cone all along the left-hand side of a panel that measured 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So this is the full front of an A2 size card. And as you can see, I already die cut all of the little ice cream tops out. You could stack those, you could have a lot of fun. I didn't even use all the pieces that do come in this kit, which shows you just how much mileage the stamp set and the kit can give you. And then I did some very simple Copic coloring on all of the little cones. I used E31 and E34. So it was really, really simple. This is a card that you could throw together very easily if you needed a quick card. Yeah, so just adding in that darker area just more to the left hand side for these cones, which is the E34. And then I'll glue down the 2 little ice creams to the inside. And then for the outside pieces, I actually used a foam square on the back of each one. You could skip that and just glue it right down, but I really did want to add a little bit of extra depth since this was such a simple card. And then what I'll do is I'll flip that over because there are a few pieces that do hang off the edge. I like doing that with my images sometimes because then it just kind of gives you the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. I have a strip of the pale pink cardstock that came in the kit, just a strip of it, and I'm going to glue that to that left-hand side. And then I will have to trim down my panel when I do. Trim off the excess of this. I'm going to use that as well, but I'll trim down my panel just a tiny bit. And then I'll cut apart a couple of the sentiments that I plan to use. And then I'll just putting like an angled edge to that right hand side of each of the sentiment and this piece of pink cardstock. And then I'll glue that down to the front, just to our panel. And then we'll overlap these so that pink will show a little bit, and then it'll draw more attention to our sentiment. And those are just going to go behind that little pink cone. And then I'll attach this to our card base using that same liquid glue we've been using the whole time. And I can't stop there. I actually bring in several of the sequins that came in the kit. I'm just going to glue those down. I used some copper ones, used some pink ones, and there's a couple different colors of pink, a very light pink and a little bit darker pink. And then I'm going to glue down the sentiment to the inside, and that's going to finish off card number 6. A super fast, fun card. And I love how that came out. So let's go ahead and take a look at all 6 cards that I made today. You could have made so many more if time had been on my side, I'll tell you. But I would love to know which one of these was your favorite. If you did, in fact, have a favorite, go ahead and leave that down in the comment section down below. That's probably one of my favorite parts of doing these kits. Honestly, I just love hearing what you guys think. If you liked this video, I'd love it if you hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And all the stuff I use will be linked down in the description box. Have a great day, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.